own name is about to go down. Let's bring in our guest to talk some more. We have former SEC Chair Harvey Pitt. He's the CEO of Kalorama Partners, and Congressman Ed Royce, Republican from California, a member of the House Financial Services and the Foreign Affairs Committee. Ed Royce, thank you for coming on late notice. We appreciate it. I am kind of up in arms about this deal. I want to ask you, first of all, from an economic and national security standpoint, does this deal trouble you?
Well, we will have to see as CFIUS takes a look at this deal. But I'll tell you what troubles me about the trend, and that is something you pointed out 10 years ago, Larry. You said unless we have a pro-market environment, we are going to see capital as quickly as it can flee today from any market. Think about what you've warned in terms of the consequences of Sarbanes-Oxley. IPOs are overseas. Think about the warnings you made about the way we didn't address some of the problems in Dodd-Frank, and what does that mean about the derivatives markets going to Europe? Think about the legal uncertainty you've talked about. Now we see this coming home to roost. We need a dramatic reversal here. We need to bring down the corporate tax rate, and we need legal certainty and regulatory certainty in the United States. Otherwise, we're going to see more of this type of activity.
Harvey Pitt, do you see it the same way? Are you as concerned? I understand, Harvey, there are many business advantages to this merger. What I don't understand is why the United States has to play second fiddle in this merger. I agree with our friend Vince Farrell in the former prior segment. The directors of the New York Stock Exchange did not have to do this. At least they didn't have to do it this way. We're even going to lose the name Harvey Pitt. That is an American capitalist icon.
Well, I think the first question is, what are the real terms of the deal? The SEC is going to have an opportunity to look this thing over quite closely and make certain that the interests of U.S. investors are protected. And that is one thing that's paramount in any kind of combination of this sort. The second thing really is, why is the NYSE in this position? I agree with the congressman that there have been problems with undue regulatory overreach. But the other question is, has the NYSE been able to keep up with the competition both in this country and overseas? And this may be a reflection of the fact that that competition has gotten the better of the NYSE.
So the regulatory issues, Harvey, the regulatory cost issues and other ancillary issues, maybe tax issues, are taking their toll. Is that what you're saying?
They are taking their toll, and so is the lack of innovation. We've seen so much progress at in the trading markets, and the NYSE has not been at the forefront of all of that.
Ed Royce, come back to this. You mentioned CFIUS before, the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States. Now, that's an executive branch committee, as I understand it, but the Congress must weigh in. You will weigh in as senior Republican on the Financial Services Committee. The Senate Banking Committee will weigh in. If this were Dubai, Ed, if this were China, we would say no to this deal. Now, I know the Germans are our allies. I get that. But are there going to be issues here that might stop this deal?
Well, a deal that right now hasn't been completed, I'm not going to comment on that. What I will say, however, is an observation that the Federal Reserve Chairman Alan Greenspan made some years ago, which is that we were in an age when the capital markets could just get up and march off to London. We could drive them out by creating a regulatory environment that is so inefficient that they can't keep up with the efficiencies in other developing markets around the world and with what is happening in Europe. And what we see today is a massive growth around the world in competitors to the New York Stock Exchange, and you see the lethargy, the lack of, jobs and capital that should be deployed in the United States, that should be deployed here at home, is going overseas because we don't have an initiative to reverse this. And that has to happen from leadership here in the House and Senate and from the President signing on. My hope is that the House reduces the corporate tax rate and addresses these other issues.
Harvey Pitt, from an SEC standpoint, now we don't know the deal, as you mentioned a few moments ago. Will they take a strong interest in this, Harvey? They're the primary regulators of the NYSE, if I'm not mistaken. What are they going to look at? What questions might they be asking from your experience as a former chairman?
I tell you, they will take a very detailed look at this, and I think they're going to have to ask questions such as, where will the revenues from the operation of the New York Stock Exchange go? Who will ultimately be responsible for all of the decision-making at the exchange? It's clear that if you have a merger with a foreign entity and you use a holding company structure, the U.S. may wind up being ousted from its jurisdictional oversight, and that's something I believe the SEC will try to protect quite vigorously.
Just expand that point. Ousted from its jurisdictional oversight. Are you saying the regulatory oversight?
Yes,
that the Europeans will now take over the regulation of our stock market and our options and our derivatives? Is that what you're saying? That Europe is going to regulate the U.S. financial system? Is that what you're saying?
That's a possibility in a merger of this kind, depending on what the structure is. I had this issue with the NASDAQ and the London Stock Exchange, and we insisted before they moved forward, and ultimately the deal didn't go through, but we insisted on making sure that there was complete responsiveness in the U.S. What would happen is if you have a foreign owner, the revenues can be upstreamed, and all of the legal issues and regulatory issues can be decided in a foreign forum. So it's critical to make sure that the New York Stock Exchange is regulated in the U.S., not overseas.
That's really amazing. Ed Royce, can you imagine, would you stand for it as a senior Republican on the banking committee, the financial committee, that the Europeans might actually wind up regulating our stock markets, our option markets, our derivatives markets, our interest rate futures markets? Or, let me put it to you this way, that the European regulators will be first fiddle and the American regulators and therefore the taxpayers will be second fiddle. Is that imaginable? Is that what this is going to come to?
Well put, Larry. Let me add one thing to it. I recently heard of an offer from Singapore to a major U.S. bank that they could provide a stable, certain regulatory environment for the next 20 years and zero corporate tax rates. They wanted that major U.S. institution to consider relocating to Singapore. All of these reasons is why it's absolutely essential right now that we have that bold action to get the low effective corporate tax rate and the legal certainty and fix Sarbanes-Oxley, fix the Frank Dodd legislation. Let's do something to bring common sense to this.
I agree. I hope Congress slows this down. I really and truly do. Anyway, Congressman Ed Royce, thank you ever so much. Harvey Pitt, great stuff. It's good to see both of you.